Under the same moon, we share the love. Embracing the differences like hand in glove. Spreading peace and joy, it's a beautiful sight. Together we shine in each other's light. And how do we stand in love's pure mind? Watching the world share in love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. Colors of harmony painting the night. United we stand in love's pure mind.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to News at Noon with Watching the World. Recently, I was interviewed by the Washington Post. You could find me on their Instagram page. So when I saw the breaking news that a Washington Post reporter has been arrested, they trailed right into his home in Virginia and took the person out. It made me wonder what was said, when, what, where, and how, because I was associated with the Washington Post and other big legacy media. Well, today we're going to get to it, but we're going to start off talking about Donald Trump and this big new health plan. Are you excited that the president of the United States is going to provide a new structure for health care? What will you guys think? Well, we're going to find out right now. We see the people here, the great people, Stella and Deborah and others. Thank you so much for all the support. Let's get right to the health care plan in the words of Donald J. Trump, our president. Thank you.
I'm thrilled to announce my plan to lower healthcare prices for all Americans and truly make healthcare affordable again. We're doing things that nobody's ever been able to do. We're calling it the Great Healthcare Plan. Instead of putting the needs of big corporations and special interests first, our plan finally puts you first and puts more money in your pocket. The government is going to pay the money directly to you.
So far, so good. Putting more money in your pocket, right? All right.
It goes to you, and then you take the money and buy your own health care. Nobody's ever heard of that before, and that's the way it is. The big insurance companies lose, and the people of our country win. This proposal locks in the massive discounts on prescription drugs that my administration is achieving through our most favored nation drug pricing agreement. Now, when you hear about that, for 40 years they've been trying to do it, but they never were able to do it. No other president was able to do it. I got every other country to approve it by the use of tariffs and other things. They all approved it. Nobody else got it. No other president got it. And for the most part, they didn't even try because they felt it was impossible. It'll bring down drug prices 80, 90% in some cases.
So the president is going to put the screws to the insurance companies and have them foot the bill. All right. Sounds good so far.
Cases, just numbers that nobody's ever heard of before. Your prescription drugs will come way, way down. And under this policy, the prices of many drugs will be slashed by 300, 400, and even 500% starting this month at the TrumpRx.gov. So instead of Americans paying the highest drug prices in the world, which we have for decades, we will now be paying the lowest cost paid by any other nation.
Seems like everything has the president's name on it. Trump, just like here in New York, we have the Trump Towers, where they had him take the name down on some of the buildings. But anyway, he likes to have his branding, and now it's all over America.
So any other nation that's paying the lowest cost, that's what we're going to pay, and the American people will get the savings. So I have to reiterate, the lowest price in the world is what you're going to pay. Before, you were paying the highest price in the world by far. And
now, if this is true, this is going to be amazing, right? Because healthcare is astronomical, especially here in New York. We pay, you wouldn't believe what we pay. So it's for certain that he's brought down the pharmaceuticals. A lot of people paying for diabetes medication and so forth. The prices are coming down. So he's going to grab the bull by the horn when it comes to the health care and bring the prices down. Let's see.
Politicians did nothing about it. So I'm asking Congress to complete the work that we've started. Next, my plan would reduce your insurance premiums by stopping government payoffs to big insurance companies and sending that money directly to the people. Obamacare was designed to make insurance companies rich. I call it the Unaffordable Care Act, with billions of dollars in taxpayer subsidies that helped their stock prices skyrocket over 1,700% as you paid more money for health care every single year, more and more. The premiums went higher and higher. I want to end this flagrant scam and put extra money straight in.
Hey, listen, whether you like the president or not, right? It doesn't care what your position is. If this is true, then it's definitely 100 in my vote for at least health care and the pharmaceuticals coming down. That's a needed plus.
Into the healthcare savings account in your name, and you go out and buy your own healthcare, and you'll make a great deal. You get better healthcare for less money. That way you can choose the care that is right for your family. To further reduce insurance premiums, my plan ends the giant kickbacks to insurance brokers and corporate middlemen that only drive up the costs, and that's what they're intended to do, drive up the cost. But we're driving down the cost. And it fully funds a long neglected part of the law known as the Cost Sharing Reduction Program. This measure alone should cut premiums on the most popular.
Shout out to AI Smart Cities. Nice to have you here. I see Stanley's here as well. And we have Ron's Lawn Crystal. Thank you very much. I'm glad you found us. We also have Jason here as well. Thank all of you guys for all the continued support and all the newcomers. We see Eric Nickerson is here. He's responsible for some of the key stories that we talk about here. And my cousin, Thomasina Martin. Love you dearly.
Obamacare plans. It's hard to believe there are any because it's a hated program. It's unaffordable, but it's going to cut them by an average of 10 to 15%. Next, the Great Healthcare Plan. That's the name. It's called the Great Healthcare because it's great healthcare at a lower price. Mandates unprecedented accountability and transparency from insurance companies and all healthcare providers so that special interests can no longer profiteer at your expense. As the saying goes, sunlight is the best disinfectant. That is why my plan orders all insurance companies to publish rate and coverage comparisons in very plain English. It requires insurers to publish detailed information about how much of your money they're going to be paying out in claims versus how much.
So now they have to show a comparison of other prices, other rates, kind of like the mortgage industry when they change the rules so that the customer does not get bamboozled. Sounds like a pretty decent idea.
They're taken in profits. In other words, you will be able to watch the scam. It forces them to release detailed data on how many claims are being denied and whether those denials are eventually overturned on appeal. And most importantly, it will require any hospital or insurer who accepts Medicare or Medicaid to prominently post all prices at their place of business so that you are never surprised and you can easily shop for a better deal or better care. And you're going to end up doing both. You're going to get a better deal and better care. We will have maximum price transparency and costs will come down incredibly. I'm calling on Congress to pass this framework into law without delay. Have to do it right now so that we can get immediate relief to the American people, the people I love.
All right. Sounds good to me. I see no problem with this. Sounds hard to believe based on what we've seen in our country. But if this is true, this is record breaking. Even if you don't like Trump but not a supporter, not getting into that realm, but I'm calling what's good, good, and what's bad, bad. I don't care who it is, okay? Jason says, really, 194 Republicans voted against Biden Medicine Reduction Act, okay? Candyman is in the building. Candyman says, now we just need the crazy people in Congress and the Senate to make it law. Let's check out this interview that Donald Trump had at the Ford plant.
President, thank you very much for doing this. We really appreciate it. We're standing here on an active...
Guys, we have close to 200 people here, YouTube, and also others here from Twitter, X. Please hit the like button, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much.
Ford assembly line, a little bit of loud, incredible symbol of American manufacturing power. and I got a lot of questions about it. But I actually want to start overseas with Iran. Americans woke up this morning and they saw that you said help is on the way.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Well, there's a lot of help on the way, and in different forms, including economic help from our standpoint, and not going to help Iran very much. And, you know, we put Iran out of business with their nuclear capacity, and now, depending on what's actually happening, nobody's been able to give us accurate numbers about how many people they've killed.
Well, on that
but
point,
it looks
Mr.
like
President,
it could be a pretty substantial number, and that's going to be a lot of problems.
a lot of problems. On that point, you did say the U.S. would get involved if Iran started killing protesters. They have, by the many thousands, according to reports.
Well, we'll see what that is. I've heard two numbers, but we'll see what that is.
Well, now we're hearing that they're going to start hanging protesters tomorrow. So it comes back to the question, have they crossed your red line, or has the line moved?
I haven't heard about the hanging. If they hang them, you're going to see some things that I don't know what where you come from and what your thought process is, but you'll perhaps be very happy.
What do you mean by that?
We will take very strong.
So, by the way, Iran changed their position on hanging the individuals. So the pressure from this administration, I guess, caused them to change course.
Action. If they do such a thing, we will take very strong action.
And this strong action you're talking about, what's the end game?
The end game is to win. I like winning.
How do you define that in Iran?
Well, let's define it in Venezuela. Let's define it with al-Baghdadi.
John Stevenson says ACA made people pay more for health care for people who could afford it, and that money went for people who couldn't afford it. Thank you.
Was wiped out. Let's define it with Soleimani, and let's define it in Iran, where it wiped out their Iran nuclear threat in a period of about 15 minutes once the B-2s got there. And that was a complete obliteration, as it turns out, which is what I said initially. Then some questioned it, and they said, you know, Trump was right. So we've been right about everything. We don't want to see what's happening in Iran happen. And, you know, if they want to have protests, that's one thing. When they start killing thousands of people, and now you're telling me about hanging, we'll see how that works out for them. It's not going to work out good.
There's so much going on overseas.
So did you hear that? He said it's not going to work out good if they want to hang people. You have to believe this guy, because we're seeing him go into other countries and actually take out the president or makeshift presidents. He's actually delivering on his word when it comes to these type of things. So they don't want to mess around.
Understandably, a lot of your focus has been on other countries. But when I talk to Americans, when I talk to your own voters, they want your focus to be on them, and they feel like it may be drifting. What do you have to say to them?
Well, Tony, we have the strongest economy maybe in the history of our country. If you went around this plant like I have, they just announced they're going to 24 hours. This is a Ford plant, but GM's the same, Stellantis is the same. They're going 24 hours all around the clock. They're enlarging every plant in this country. We're building more plants in the country than we've ever built. There's no inflation. You saw the inflation numbers. Inflation's very low.
It seemed bad on groceries.
Our growth numbers are through the roof. Our job numbers are tremendous. We have the highest stock market we've ever had. Today, we hit every day for the last, I think, 48 times out of 11 months. 48 days out of 11 months, we've had the #1 stock market in the history of our country.
I can confirm that I've seen probably the largest increase ever in my stock portfolio with over the last year. It's insane. So I can confirm that.
So my big focus is here. But you can't be forgetting about bad threats. You can't be forgetting about an Iran with a nuclear weapon. You can't forget that there's tremendous wealth in the Middle East, and a lot of that wealth is coming over here to build plants.
I want to make it very clear here on Watching the World. I'm able to say if the president does something great, I'm going to say it. If I feel like he did something bad, I'm going to say it. Same thing goes for Biden or anyone else. So it's not a angle. I'm just telling you the facts of what I perceive.
Saudi Arabia is giving us $2 trillion. Qatar is giving us $2 trillion. UAE is giving us $2 trillion. All of that is for the good of this country. So my focus is very much on this country, but you can't lose sight of the fact that we need peace all over the world.
Gwyneth says Trump has no intention to help you. All right.
Did 8 wars. If we had those 8 wars raging, it would be very bad for this country.
Mr. President, you mentioned the market there. I've got a question that might affect the markets. It's the Jerome Powell situation. He's the Fed chair. I know you've said you had nothing to do with the investigation, the criminal probe into him. but you have been criticizing him for,
terrible. No,
for most of the last year. And even some prominent conservatives say it looks like political retribution.
And some prominent conservatives also love it. So, you got to mention them.
What do you say to that
As
accusation?
you grow older in this position, you have to mention the other side. More people like it than not. He's been a lousy Fed chairman. He was reappointed by Biden. I was a little surprised at that because I didn't think he really earned his stripes. He's been too high on interest rates, and I call him too late. He's too late to reduce. He should have reduced them by more. Despite that, we fought through that. In addition, he heads up a construction situation on a rebuilding of a little building, 2 little buildings called the Fed. Yeah. You know where they are. You've seen them a million times. Yeah. I think I could have done that job. I could have fixed them up for 20.
In the next video, we're going to see how Donald Trump gives a guy at this facility the middle finger. So stick around, check it out.
25 million. He's into billions and billions of dollars, and it looks like they won't open for a long time. And he's either corrupt or incompetent.
So on the question of corrupt or incompetent, you're right. Some prominent conservatives are criticizing this. I'll take your word that others are not.
You don't have to take my word. What you should do is go out and interview some people, and you'll find out.
But on this direct question about political retribution, what it looks like, sir, what's your response?
I can't help what it looks like. Look, I've created the greatest economy maybe in history, and you're seeing that now.
Okay, so let's just take a pause here, have a moment of silence. If you think the president is correct, put a 1 in the chat if you think he's created the best economy in a very long time. Put a 2 if you disagree, all right? Put a 3 if you just don't care, all right? Tell us what you think.
Plants are being built all over the country. We've never had anything like it. They're leaving Canada, they're leaving Mexico, they're leaving Japan and all over Europe, Germany, all over Europe, they're coming in. Bill Ford Motor Company, he just told me that he's never seen anything like what's happened. I also freed up some of the environmental nonsense which made it virtually impossible to build a car, and certainly to build a car for the right cost. And they're doing better than they've ever done. AI, we're leading China by a lot. We're leading China by a tremendous amount. We're leading everybody at everything. And then we had a big victory. I would say that even you would say that. We had a big victory with Venezuela. We had a big victory with Iran. We have a lot of victories. We don't have any defeats, and I want to keep it that way.
I've got an important question about the situation in Minnesota, the death of Renee Nicole.
All right, pay attention to this key moment of this interview.
Nicole Good. I've been speaking to her father, who is a big supporter of yours, like many Americans are, but he's heartbroken right now.
I can understand that.
He's heartbroken because his daughter is dead. That's obvious. He's also heartbroken because your administration so quickly has come out and said she's a domestic terrorist. What do you want to say to her father right now?
Well, I want to say to the father that I love all of our people. They can be on the other side. As you say, he might be on my side.
He is on your side.
And I think that's great. And I do. I think it's great. And I would bet you that she, under normal circumstances, was a very solid, wonderful person. But, her actions were pretty tough. I mean, I've seen it many ways and many different shapes and forms. But the bottom line...
Good to see you dropping out.
Mine is, look, we have hundreds of thousands of murderers in our countries, killers. ICE is trying to get them out. They were let in through an open border policy of sleepy Joe Biden. ICE is working very hard to get them out. Their job is being made very, very difficult. And, when you look at that tape, it can be viewed 2 ways, I guess. But when you look at the way that car was pulled away, there are a couple of versions of that tape that are very, very bad.
I want to talk about the economy while we have you here. The inflation numbers came out.
Okay, so just so you know, we have mostly ones. Most individuals feel like the president is actually delivering on his economy. All right.
Overall, not bad, but grocery prices.
No, overall, very good. Good for us. Good for our country. Joe Biden had the highest inflation numbers in history, correct?
The direction...
I have them down to a level that they haven't seen in about 9 years.
And Mr. President, help me understand, when I travel the country and I go all over the place and I talk to everyday Americans, they tell me they don't feel it because grocery prices
might not,
are up.
but they're going to now. I've only been here for 11 months.
Please hit the like button, share, and subscribe. Thank you very much.
Okay. And, the first few months were really rough, if you look at them, because I inherited a mess. I inherited a mess of crime. I inherited a mess of inflation. I inherited a mess of places closing up and going to other countries. and now we have the hottest country in the world. Tony, we have now the hottest country in the world, and a year and a half ago, our country was dead. We had a dead country. You wouldn't have a job right now. If she got in, you probably wouldn't have a job right now. Your boss, who's an amazing guy, might be bust, okay?
Might be
That's
what?
how bad. Might be bust. I doubt it in his case, but you'd never know. Let me just tell you, you wouldn't have this job. You wouldn't have this job, certainly whatever the hell they're paying you. Our country is rocketing right now. We have the hottest country in the world. If they got in, we would be Venezuela on steroids.
Mr. President, I'm just trying to be fair here, just trying to do my job, and I want to talk about this assembly line here.
To me, it's vibrant. Listen to the sound.
It's incredible, right?
I love the sound.
Guys, go check out China stock BYD. Check out that stock for the electric cars. They are cooking America's boots. I'm just giving you guys the facts, whether you want to hear it or not. Ford stock, I own a lot of Ford stock, but let me tell you, it's sucking wind every day. So we have to take this with a grain of salt. I invest every day in all sorts of things. Tesla, I was telling everybody, get into Tesla. It was at $90. That's when Doge had taken over. Tesla dropped tremendously, and I was saying buy, and I was buying. Now it's up tremendously as well. But you have to do the research. Definitely look at Ford.
Sound of an assembly line.
It's incredible. But they've got one not far from here. They just idled the electric vehicle plant.
Well, yeah, but it's going to gasoline vehicles.
Yeah, it's going to go to gasoline.
Well, but why don't you say that, Tony? You can't say.
You didn't give me a chance. I'm
I mean,
coming there. I'm coming around.
I agree. I said I want electric, and I want gasoline, and I want hybrids. I want.
Tip says, we do not have the hottest country in the world. Trump is leading us straight to hell. All right.
Everything. But you were going to be forced under the mandate to buy an electric car in a very short period of time. I didn't want that, and I ended that. Now people can have electric, they can have gasoline, they can have hybrid.
But are they going to have people to build these cars? The CEO of Ford said not long ago he's got 5,000 open mechanic jobs. He can't find people willing.
I have an electric car, the latest Tesla X. I love it. It's amazing electric car. I've had it for 3 to 4 years, second time around with it, second generation. But I also have the GMC Yukon, and let me tell you, a world of a difference. It almost make me wish that the Yukon was an electric car as well.
No, but that's a good thing, Tony. That means it's vibrant. You could also have things where you have so many people and they can't get jobs. It's true.
Reverend Jim Jones is here. Says, you guys hate America. Okay, who is that? Talk to us. Juan says, Renee, not a sheep. Okay. Jason says, unlawful orders on an illegal stop. Did you guys hear about what happened last night? Another individual, while we were going live, someone was actually shot again in Minnesota. Like, what's really happening? Said the man was shot at his front door. The police was actually targeting to get him to remove him out of the country, by ICE. And he was shot. The people are going crazy.
We are doing so well, it's hard. Now, what's going to happen is people are being trained rapidly, and you're going to have a thing called robots. And robots are going to be a big factor. I predict
let's talk about that.
Robots are going to be a big factor in the future, and it's going to help out. But you have a situation now where our economy is doing so well that it's not that easy to get people. We're training people, they're training people, companies are training people, and they're doing well.
Why do you think
that's a positive question you asked me. I don't think you asked it in that way, but we are doing so well right now that we're training people to take those jobs. One other thing, we terminated many federal jobs. Because that's a good thing, because they want to go private. The way you make our country great is you can't have too many federal workers, all right? Those workers are being trained to go into the private sector at a much higher salary.
Yeah, well, let's talk about robotics for a second, because that's a concern of a lot of people working, not only here, but all over the country. What is the future for jobs like these?
So I just want to take a moment. I want to tell you guys real quick. I was at Nicolas Maduro's hearing. I actually sat right behind him. I saw him come into the courtroom. I personally feel, especially after hearing him say how he was kidnapped from the U.S. military, so forth and so on. I feel like when you look at Venezuela, Greenland, what's happening in Africa, the United States is actually going after resources to probably try to fill in the deficit in our country. And if you look at it closely, you'll start to see this manifest, that they It doesn't matter what Maduro was doing or what Greenland is doing or what they say to try to turn the tide. It's not going to happen because Donald Trump is on a mission to get resources to profit the American people or America. That's just the plan.
One guy told me on the way in, he thinks it's a critical threat to his industry.
Well, you know, in one light, you're telling me that, you know, you can't get workers.
Well, that's what the CEO said.
Well, you said that, and then you said the opposite. You can't have it both ways. Look, we're going to need help because we're expanding so rapidly that we need, people are going to make a lot of money. A skilled worker, a person with talent, education in what they do, not education in nuclear physics, education in what they do. They're going to make a lot of money.
So I'm going to ask you guys real quick. Do you want to be Greenland or do you want to be America? Which one do you want to be, right? Do you want to be on the opposing end? Because I showed the video last night from Greenland, how they were hoping to make a deal with America, but America basically told them, we want you. We want to own you. We don't want to just add more troops. And they were not happy about that, but this is what's happening.
Federal workers are leaving the federal government where you had 10 people for every job. And they're going out and they're going into the private sector at 2 and 3 times the salary. And you see that all over. So I only say this. I think that robotics are going to be great because this country won't have enough people if we don't have it. Our people are going to be trained and they're going to make more money than they've ever made before.
Last question, I think you'll be. I was very interested in a comment you made recently about nothing being able to limit your action overseas except for your own morality and your own mind. I'd like to take that same question and apply it here in the U.S.
So did you hear that? Did you pick up that Donald Trump is saying that there's nothing that can stop him except his own mind, right? So that tells you the kind of power that the man has. And you can listen to Congress and all these concepts that we formerly knew, but we're starting to see untreaded waters and concepts that we haven't seen before. And we're seeing that America is doing things that are shaking up other countries that we thought Russia was very strong. But why, if Russia is so strong, why was the United States so easily able to go in and take Maduro? I mean, I sat in the courthouse with him. It's a real deal thing. This man was blown out of his socks. His wife, I saw her as she entered the courtroom. Her face was all bruised up. The legacy media is not telling you that. So that's why at Watching the World, I go to these court cases to try to give you inside information that you don't normally typically hear in the legacy media.
Is there anything that limits your
800 people? Could we please get some likes, shares, and subscribe to the channel? Thank you.
Your power, your movement, your action here, other than your own morality?
Well, I talk about morality. I'm a moral person.
And by the way, we do this every day at noon from Monday to Friday, news at noon. Keep tapping in with us.
I don't like seeing death. I don't like seeing our people hurt. I don't like seeing the other side hurt either. You know, when we went into Venezuela, we lost nobody, but a lot of people on the other side were killed. I don't like that. Somebody else would say, oh, that's wonderful. I don't like that.
So I just want to explain that to you. We have a lot of ground to cover. The reason the people that were killed were Cubans because Maduro had surrounded himself with Cuban soldiers because he didn't trust the Venezuelan people, the military, to protect him. So that's why 32 allegedly of the Cubans were taken out. Not one American was killed.
So yeah, it's limited by my morality, and I have a very high grade of morality, so therefore it's limited.
Not the Constitution, not the courts. That's what I thought you were going to say.
Well, the Constitution and courts, that goes without saying. But you're asking me what really can stop? We'll never get to the courts. We'll never get to the Constitution because I want to see what's good for our country. And you know what? The courts want to see that too.
Yeah. Mr. President, thank you very much. For the record, I do think.
So there you have it, folks. That's the words of the president himself. We keep covering this. So you understand, a lot of my investments that I make is based on Donald Trump. Again, I knew his brother quite well, so I had some insight as far as the family structure. Although I'm an independent, I can look at Donald Trump and say, hey, I agree with this. I don't agree with that. Joe Biden, I agree with this. I don't agree with that. Same thing. I think that's the construct that most of us should have. Now we're going to see how Donald Trump gave a guy that was at this Ford plant the finger. Let's get to it.
Example of free society is Donald Trump goes to the Ford plant today. I mean, I'm serious. This is what, like, and again, this isn't just some trivial thing. This is what the whole fight is about. Like, do we live in the kind of country where you can do this or not? and a worker screams at him and calls him a pedophile protector, and he flips the worker off before walking away. I think we have this footage. Play that for us for a second. Someone screaming pedophile protector. Again, their whole thing is project strength, project popularity, only care about the base. But that's not the reality out in the world.
No, not at all. And I think at every turn, whether it's the Epstein scandal, the way ICE is behaving, Trump's economic policies, the actions of the administration betray a lack of discipline that I think.
So the bottom line is the president always tries to show strength, even while being heckled by this individual at the Ford plant. Would you believe, let me tell you guys, this is breaking news. The individual that was heckling the president that he gave the middle finger to, he was relieved of his job. Would you believe he's raised over $800,000 on GoFundMe? So the American people has contributed money to him. I've seen this so many times when it comes to criminal cases in regards to Luigi Mangione. The public sent him, although he's allegedly on trial for taking the life of Brian Thompson right here on the streets of New York. He raised $1.4 million from GoFundMe from the public, right? So we're seeing this happen with people supporting individuals for various causes. Now we're going to move on. I want to show you guys how this reporter from the Washington Post has been arrested.
The FBI has raided the home of a Washington Post journalist who's been covering the Trump administration's federal government firing since he took office. Hannah Natanson recently wrote this article about the hundreds of federal employees.
I was recently interviewed by the Washington Post here in New York, and you could check that out on Instagram and some other platforms, right? But when I saw this post, I said, oh, well, let me go back and see what was said, make sure I didn't say anything wrong either. So you got to be careful.
Who have reached out to her. The FBI took a phone, 2 laptops, and a watch. But here's the interesting part. Agents told her that she is not their target, but part of a classified documents leak investigation stemming from a Pentagon contractor. Joining me now is Jesse Weber, host of News Nation's new show, Jesse Weber Live, which premieres this coming Monday. You know, Jesse, I feel like past administrations that have aggressively gone after certain publications or certain leaked stories have stopped short of this. How extraordinary is this move of searching a journalist's home?
It's really unusual unless the journalist had clearly, or there was evidence clearly committed a crime. You know, first of all, federal law protects journalists from having their work product searched. But remember what Attorney General Pam Bondi did back in April. She actually issued a memo that would make it easier for prosecutors to look into potential leaks to news media, issuing subpoenas and things of that nature. So you're kind of having this conflict here. But when you hear the DOJ say, listen, neither the Washington Post nor this reporter is the target or focus of the criminal investigation, it does make you wonder, A, what exactly are they searching for? And B, why was a search of the home necessary? Sometimes it could be communication with her or her lawyer to let them know what they're looking for. And then if that doesn't, if that doesn't result in some sort of negotiation.
Now, this is strange in any way you look at it, right?
Sending over material, then you may see this escalation. So there's a lot of questions here, but it seems at this point there may have been some communication between this government contractor who has been criminally charged and this reporter. And the question is whether or not any classified material was shared.
Was shared with her. So it sounds like that's what they were looking for, is what kind of leaked information did he or she share to Natanson. If that is the reason, and that's the reason alone, is the FBI, would they be legally justified in searching her home to try to figure that out?
See, that's where it's tricky, right? Because what is he not currently charged with? Now, he's only charged, the guy who's the government contractor, he's charged with unlawful retention, right? Mm-hmm. He's not charged with disseminating information. So they haven't charged him with respect to that. That could change. The problem is generally reporters are protected from, if they get information, even if it was illegally.
Listen, when I tell you, you don't want to mess around with the federal government. The other day when I was in court waiting for Nicolas Maduro, the president from Venezuela, that's what he was calling himself at least, you could hear the chains clinking as they were releasing the chains from him. They wanted to send a message, right? That this is serious business when you fool around with the feds.
Obtained by somebody else and they can report on it, unless she was somehow part of this and was encouraging it and was somehow aiding in illegally retaining this information or getting this information, that's where you get into tricky areas here. But again, with AG...
Guys, we have over 1,000 people collectively. Please hit the like button, share, subscribe. Thank you very much. It goes far.
Bondi's, memo from April, that may give some cover, but I do wonder if this escalates even further, if we'll see a legal challenge in court.
Yeah, and now, you've seen the reaction to this story. You have press freedom advocates now speaking out.
So we're going to keep our eyes in tune on this particular case. As you know, I cover these things on a day-to-day basis, but now we're going to cover something that's quite shocking. Last night, I covered how Greenland is under fire. Donald Trump says, hey, listen, I want to own the land. We don't want these terms. We want to own Greenland. Well, lo and behold, today, the militaries of other countries are flooding into Greenland. And what does this mean? Are they going to rise up and try to take on Donald Trump? Let's see.
Denmark is increasing its military presence in and around Greenland with troops from Germany and other European nations. A Danish troop transport plane landed at Greenland's capital Nuuk overnight. The arrival of troops is said to be in support of military exercises, but it comes as Donald Trump justifies calls for a U.S. takeover of the territory. He says Greenland can't defend itself against Russia's or China's Arctic ambitions. Now, the announcement came after Denmark's and Greenland's foreign ministers held inconclusive talks in Washington with U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance.
So I want to ask you guys a question based on what we're seeing right now. If the United States has a vast deficit of trillions of dollars, and by closing the gap or paying it down, they could go and take over other countries and take their resources. Put a 1 in the chat if you are with that mission of taking from others and conquering other nations, or put a 2 if you disagree with that. Let's see what most people think.
And Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
A failed attempt to turn down the temperature in Washington. The foreign ministers of Greenland and...
Okay, guys, AI Smart City says yes. Okay, a lot of people are saying, oh my, so many people are saying yes, yes, yes. Stanley says Trump will not go against all the allies in Greenland. Okay, all right, you don't think so? I think Trump will do anything. Helen says no. Okay. Grant says yes. Yes. Okay. Mr. How Hot says the Canadian government said y'all could walk into the forest because forest fires. Okay. Fine says no. Okay. Okay. We're getting a lot of pushback. People do not want to see our government. Okay. The pushback is winning. Most people don't want to see us conquering other nations like the Roman Empire back in the day. Okay, thank you, guys.
Denmark were unable to convince U.S. officials to back down on their plans for Greenland.
We had what I will describe.
Oh, this is very distinctive. Mr. Good Citizen says, I hate government. Doesn't matter who's running it. All right. So that's I felt that seems very sincere. Critical 509 says being a Jew is not the same as being a criminal. All right.
As a frank but also constructive discussion. The discussions focused on how to ensure the long-term security in Greenland. And here our perspectives continue to differ, I must say. The President has made his view clear, and we have a different position. And we therefore still have a fundamental disagreement, but we also agree to disagree. And therefore we will, however, continue to talk.
Speaking to reporters in the Oval Office, President Donald Trump remains undeterred from his goals to annex the territory.
Greenland is very important for the national security, including of Denmark. And the problem is not a thing that Denmark can do about it if Russia or China wants to occupy Greenland. But there's everything we can do. You found that out last week with Venezuela.
Trump's concerns about Greenland's vulnerability has caused Denmark to boost the number of its troops in and around the Arctic territory.
This means that from today and for the near future, there will be an increased military presence in and around Greenland, involving aircraft, ships, and soldiers, including those from other NATO allies.
Germany, France, Norway and Sweden say that they will also be sending troops to Greenland to beef up security.
They won't be able to stop the United States, it's quite clear.
And for more on the European response to President Trump's ambitions for Greenland, we can cross straight to Brussels and speak to our correspondent there, Jack Parrock. Hi, Jack. It's pretty clear there that the Danish and Greenlandic foreign ministers did not manage.
So we're going to keep an eye on this story as things develop. I will keep you in the loop. Believe that each day we do this. Recently, I was offered, and actually I have a meeting coming up next week with the Legacy Media Group to talk about taking this show to a bigger place. But I say no, because I like doing this independent. I trade in the stock market every day, so no need for that. But I just want you guys to know that this is very important to me. I do this because I want to. I don't do this to eat. I do this because I enjoy it. This is my passion. So anyway, Donald Trump in Minnesota, he puts out a big threat. We're going to get to it now, folks.
President Trump says he will use the Insurrection Act in Minnesota to deploy troops and stop protests there. This just coming down moments ago. Confrontations continued in Minneapolis hours after officials say a suspected illegal immigrant attacked an officer with a shovel who then shot the man in the leg in self-defense. Let's get out to News Nation's Mills Hayes, who's been there on the ground for us. Mills, how has the mood there in Minneapolis shifted after this most recent shooting?
Okay, this is heartfelt. Stanley says, Mel, you're way too honest for Legacy Media. Thank God. All right. Yes, I stand on that. No worries about me switching up. I want to keep my freeness of speech. That's why I do this. Thanks.
Marky, it's definitely more tense, and President Trump even threatening to invoke the Insurrection Act after we saw this unrest overnight following that ICE officer-involved shooting with a Venezuelan immigrant. Also, just 1 week after Renee Good was killed by an ICE officer. You could still see some of the crime scene tape on the ground here. We saw hundreds of protesters come out in response. Minneapolis police saying they declared an unlawful assembly and that protesters were throwing ice, rocks, and fireworks at officers. Federal officers deploying flashbangs, pepper spray, and tear gas. Now, this all happened, DHS says, when they were making a targeted enforcement traffic stop of a migrant from Venezuela. They say that he fled from them, and when they were chasing after him, two other men came out of an apartment with a shovel and a broomstick and began attacking those officers. One ICE officer fired in self-defense, fearing.
Let me ask you a question. How many of you in the audience think it's okay to take a shovel and hit an officer? Under what circumstances will that go well for you? Let's just ask a common sense question. Who in their right mind would take a shovel and try to attack ICE? That would be asking for big trouble, right? It's almost like what's in your mind to make you want to do something like that? We have to obey the law, and if we don't, there's certain things that can happen to you. I go to court and I see even Sean Diddy Combs, a billionaire, and for 9 weeks I was in the main courtroom sitting behind Sean Diddy Combs. He has no control. They tell him where to sit, where to leave out, and when you get past this door, we're going to put these handcuffs right back on you. Like, you'd have to be out of your rabbit mind to think you could just go and take on any type of police force, right?
For his safety, shooting the initial subject in the leg. Then they were able to take all three into custody after a struggle. The ICE officer and the man who was shot are in the hospital, and police say that they believe the injury is non-life threatening. Now, Minneapolis officials, they say that they understand.
Oh, too funny. 361 says, no, you should use 2 shovels and not a broom. All right, that's a good one.
And these people are very angry, but they also want protesters to remain calm and not to take the bait. We also saw protesters break into federal officers' vehicles that were left behind the scene. You can actually see some.
You're breaking into officers' vehicles. It won't end well for you. You know, you're asking for trouble. And the legal fees, the attorneys are going to suck you dry just to get you over these charges, right?
Some of the documents still on the ground over here. At one point, they were able to pull out a document that had federal officers' names and phone numbers on the sheet as well. And so we're going to continue to monitor this, especially after President Trump said that he could invoke the Insurrection Act after all of these protests here. Marky?
All right, Mills Hayes live in Minneapolis. Thanks so much.
Thank you for.
Well, it's like that song by Phil Collins. I could feel it coming in the air tonight. You could just see trouble is on the horizon for people. I understand the pushback, but you also have to do it within reason, right? Within reason. Okay, so we're going to get to another breaking story here. Let's get right to it.
But what I saw in that room was one of the most troubling things I've seen in my time in public service. You have two individuals in clear distress, without any means of locomotion, with a destroyed vessel, who were killed by the United States.
So basically, the United States is really in hot water, this Hegseth and maybe even Donald Trump, because when they first strike the first boat in Venezuela, they're trying to say that they used a civilian airplane disguised, right, it was actually a military vessel that took the life of these individuals. Let's get to it.
It was Congressman Jim Himes on December 4th after viewing classified briefing about the second strike in the Caribbean. Hi again, everybody. It's now 5 o'clock in New York. You do not have to be an expert in warfare. You don't need to have any sort of encyclopedic knowledge of the Geneva Conventions or the laws of armed conflict or the history of the rules of engagement. You don't even need to have heard of the word perfidy before today to grasp the rank moral depravity, how far from normal we are, and what is at the center of what may very well turn out to be a war crime perpetrated by Donald Trump's Department of Defense.
Can you imagine we're committing war crimes? What's happening?
It is the subject of some extraordinary new journalism, some groundbreaking new reporting in the New York Times that shines a light on the first of what would be dozens of deadly military strikes on boats alleged to be smuggling drugs in the Caribbean. We are back at that September 2nd operation. It's in question again, video of which you just heard Congressman Jim Himes describe as, quote, one of the most troubling things he'd seen in his time in public service. It was already the subject of scrutiny, having to do with that second strike that killed two survivors floating amid the wreckage. And now this, the New York Times, citing officials briefed on the matter, reveals this, that the Pentagon used a secret aircraft painted to look like a civilian plane, its munitions carried inside the fuselage rather than visibly under its wings, and that's a big deal. Such deadly deceit goes back millennia and is prohibited under the Geneva Convention.
So we have a great mixture. We have Republicans, we have Democrats, we have independents, right? Tell us what you think. You think that was okay to paint the airplane and, do the deadly deed, right? Tell us what you think.
Conventions. In the same way it is wrong to go in for a handshake with a knife behind your back, disguising military assets to appear civilian and attacking with them flies in the face of the modern rules and laws of engagement. And even if you buy the Trump administration's dubious position that such strikes are part of a larger armed conflict with drug cartels, from the Times reporting, quote, regardless of the specific aircraft at issue, 3 people familiar with the matter acknowledged that it was not painted in the usual military
Charles Knott says it's despicable,
gray, and lacked military markings. But they said its transponder was transmitting a military tail number, meaning broadcasting or squawking its military identity via radio signals. Several law of war.
Dan says Trump lies constantly. None of his supporters are getting what they apparently voted for, but they don't have morals. They just go along with whatever he does while pretending he isn't contradictory. All right.
Experts said that would not make the use of such an aircraft lawful in these circumstances, since the people on the boat probably lacked equipment to pick up the signal, end quote. A White House spokesperson telling the New York Times that, quote, the strike was fully consistent with the law of armed conflict, although depending on what Congress decides to do or what Congress decides not to do, that question may not be for the administration to determine. That new reporting is where we begin the hour with some of our favorite experts and friends. Lieutenant General Mark Hertling is here. He served as the commanding general of the U.S. Army in Europe. Also joining us, Margaret Donovan. She served as a captain in the Army, serving in the 101st Airborne Division and later in the 5th Special Forces Group. She was captain in the JAG Corps and is the former assistant U.S. attorney for the District of Connecticut. She's now a visiting lecturer at Yale Law. Also joining us, former Undersecretary of State for Public Diplomacy and Public Affairs during the Obama administration, MS Now political analyst Rick Stengel is with me at the table for the hour. General Hertling, I start with you. This alert from the New York Times under 6 or 7 bylines is one of those stories that I'll remember for a long time where I was when it was alerted and where I read it. I stopped something that's usually sacred, family dinner time, and stood there and read the whole thing and said, oh my God. And I just wonder your reaction to the reporting.
My reaction, Nicole, is that this is just another step against ethical behavior. And, you know, as soldiers, as commanders, with our JAGs behind us, like Margaret, we make decisions based on morality and ethics and legality. It's how we fight.
Candyman says the U.S. has been using spy planes for 85 years. This won't go anywhere.
And we do that for several reasons. The primary one is because you don't want your enemies doing something bad against you other than fighting. You also know from readings of St. Augustine and others the moral implications of warfare and killing people, the controlled chaos that commanders have to have as one of their responsibilities. So when you start using deceit, not deception, not camouflage, but true deceit, it overrides that morality that's associated with war. And that's what we put our...
But do you guys really expect the government to tell you the truth? Let me give you a couple examples, right? In Venezuela, we're after drugs, right? And then it turned into oil, right? Do you really believe the rare essence of what was stated? What about in Greenland when they said basically, and I showed you last night where they say, oh, Russia and China have these huge warships out at sea. It's a security threat. And then Greenland says, no, we haven't even seen a warship in 10 years, right? So what do you guys think? Are you expecting to get the truth out of the government? Tell us what you think.
Servicemen and women into, and they have to live with it. And unfortunately, the decisions that are being made to use some of these techniques, just like waterboarding was used during the 2000, early 2000 post 9/11 period, it gnaws at people. They don't like to do it.
John Stevenson says, who cares if it looked like a civilian aircraft? Okay, we're going to keep our eyes on this story as well, but we have to keep moving because you know what? The United States has seized another oil tanker at sea in the Caribbean. Let's get to it.
Take a look at this message coming in from the U.S. Southern Command. The type kind of hard to read, but it does say, through Op Southern Spear, the Department of War is unwavering in its mission to crush illicit activity in the Western Hemisphere in partnership with the Coast Guard through DHS and the DOJ. In another pre-dawn action, Marines and sailors from Joint Task Force Southern Spear in support of the Department of Homeland Security launched from the USS Gerald R. Ford and apprehended motor tanker Veronica without incident. I do want to pop up that video that's there on the left-hand side of your screen.
It's safe to say they won't get Veronica back. You can believe that.
In full, so you can get a better view of the video of the seizure. Again, on the bottom, you did see today's date, and on the top, unclassified video released by officials. Now, the Veronica is the latest tanker operating in defiance of President Trump's established quarantine of sanctioned vessels in the Caribbean, proving the effectiveness of Operation Southern Spear yet again. That is according to U.S. Southern Command. These operations are backed, they say, by the full power of the U.S. Navy's Amphibious Ready Group, including the ready and lethal platforms of U.S.
Folks, the United States is taking resources from various places all at the same darn time. Isn't it something, right? Something to behold, I must say. Well, this is going to conclude our official news at noon. Now we're going to get into, this is a rare moment, we're going to get into philosophy a little bit. I'm going to share a video with you guys that's all about philosophy, but it might help you understand what's really happening at a broad scale when it comes to the United States on the world scene. Because whether you like the president or if you don't like the country, that's on you. But we do need to understand if we want to enjoy life and navigate with some sort of knowledge, right? We want to move with intelligence. So I'm going to show this video now, and we're just going to check it out. And I look forward to seeing your comments in regards. This is the rare moment that we have. I typically don't do this. Let's get to it in regards to the world scene.
It's Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. As President Trump threatens Iran, Venezuela, Mexico, Greenland, and more, we spend the rest of the hour with the renowned historian Alfred McCoy. His new book, Cold War and Five Continents, A Global History of Empire and Espionage, and his recent article, Ending the American Dream by 2029. McCoy is a history professor at University of Wisconsin-Madison. We welcome you back to Democracy Now! In your book, you describe the 1953 coup in Iran as an act whose consequences were measured across decades, leading directly to the 1979 revolution. What are your thoughts on witnessing this escalation?
I want to take a moment and just thank everybody who tuned in for News at Noon during your lunch hour or what have you. We really do appreciate your support, and please know that.
Relating Trump threats against Iran, saying the U.S. may possibly intervene militarily there. Professor McCoy.
Thank you, Amy. The United States is an empire in decline. And if you look back over the past 100 years, the lessons of history.
And I want you guys to think about the Roman Empire. I recently went to Rome. I study these type of things. I want you to pay close attention and the comparison.
Are pretty clear. Declining empires suffer from two things. One, they suffer from what's called micro-militarism abroad. They send troops abroad. In their flailing decline, thinking that some form of military intervention will recapture the global power that is slipping away from their hands. And then domestically, the other thing they suffer from, every single declining empire over the past 100 years, the Soviet Empire, British Empire, the Spanish, all the rest, they suffer from coups. And of course, we had our coup on January 6, 2001. So as American politics become increasingly contorted and irrational, I think the thing to do is to realize that we are an empire in decline, and we are writhing in this kind of irrationality, particularly in the international realm, and it will continue for another decade or two until the power, American power, finally slips away.
And Professor McCoy, in terms of this declining empire, the Trump administration, President Trump has said he wants to increase military spending by 50%, from $1 trillion to $1.5 trillion. How does this fit into the flailing of a declining empire, as you mentioned, and also this attempt to reassert control over?
I want to ask this question. Put a 1 in the chat if you agree. Put a 2 if you don't. Do you think with Donald Trump increasing the budget on the military from $1 trillion to $1.5 trillion, is that an indication we might be preparing for a major war? 1 if you agree, 2 if you don't.
For the Western Hemisphere, to create essentially a fortress of the Western Hemisphere against the rest of the world, the likelihood of that succeeding?
Good question, Juan. First of all, the United States has been for over a century now dominant in the Western Hemisphere, at least North America. And even with reduced global influence, the United States does have a capacity to exercise military force in the hemisphere. Whether that will produce good relations with our Latin American neighbors is highly questionable. But to turn to your question about this retreat from the world into the Western Hemisphere, that's...
Tom says no. Bobby says yes. Okay. Ostel says yes. We have mostly yeses. Okay. So most people here feel like we're headed for a major war.
Effectively, a near disastrous decision. Right now, we are in a new Cold War, a Cold War between Moscow, Beijing, and Washington. And the object of the new Cold War, just as it was for the old Cold War, is dominance, control over the vast Eurasian landmass. The way the United States won the Cold War, and we did win it hands down, was that we encircled the vast Eurasian continent with an iron curtain, and we defended that iron curtain by rings of steel, naval armadas, aircraft, and above all, military alliances, the NATO alliances on the western end of Eurasia, and 5 bilateral military alliances with Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Philippines, and Australia on the eastern edge of Eurasia. And Washington simply sat back with the Sino-Soviet bloc contained behind what was called the Iron Curtain and waited for a blunder. And the Soviet Union, like many declining empires, engaged in this micro-militarism. It invaded and occupied Afghanistan in 1979, and by the time the Red Army withdrew 10 years later, bloody and battered, it was incapable and unwilling to intervene when Eastern Europe, the satellite nations, broke away, and the Soviet republics, the Soviet Union broke apart, and that was the end of the Soviet Union, and that was the end of the Cold War. So clearly, maintaining a position in Eurasia, particularly Western Europe.
Stella says, like, share, and subscribe, and turn on your notifications to be notified for upcoming shows. Thank you, Stella, for all you do.
Is critical to U.S. geopolitical position in this new Cold War. And Trump's retreat from Europe, his damaging of NATO, threatening Greenland, and if that happens, the Prime Minister of Denmark, a foundation member of NATO.
Guys, give Stella a thank you. She pretty much keeps the show alive, and I keep talking. Thank you.
Has said that that's pretty much the end of NATO. So in many ways, Trump is damaging the U.S. position in Western Europe. And that constitutes almost a unilateral surrender in geopolitical terms in the midst of this new Cold War. So the retreat to the Western Hemisphere simply makes no sense. And the implications of this for the world are quite considerable, because both Russia and China are expanding their dominance over this vast Eurasian landmass. And that threatens the stability of the entire international system of law, trade, and diplomacy.
Well, you mentioned Russia and China in your recent piece, Ending the American Dream by 2029. You talk about China's electric vehicle production, which already is 70% of the global total, how that could make the...
Did you hear that? China has 70% of global electric vehicles. You see what's happening here? We're talking about Ford and what Ford is doing. It's companies out of China that is really going to affect us tremendously for these type of for the car industry as a whole.
U.S. auto industry, which was for most of the post-World War II period, the mainstay of the American economy, almost obsolete. Could you talk about the significance of that?
Sure. Right now.
That's why Barack Obama was giving the car industry at large all of these huge bailouts, because that was the mainstay, the auto industry of America, right?
Well, first of all, every major empire over the last 500 years has been synonymous with conquering or developing a new form of energy. For the Spanish, it was slavery, maximizing the energy output of the human body through cruel plantation slavery. For the British, it was the coal-fired revolution in steam power. For the United States, it was oil power. And we are now in the midst of a green energy revolution, switching to alternative energy, solar and wind power, particularly solar. And China is absolutely dominant in...
So I'm going to make a prediction. I could be wrong, but I would encourage you guys. I have a lot of guys in the audience today, especially that do investing, and we pass back and forth on stocks. I will tell you, when SoFi was at around $4, I was telling everybody to buy it. Now SoFi is through the roof, right? Also Tesla, when it fell to $90, when they started Doge, I was telling people buy it. Look at the numbers, right? Also Rocket Lab, when it was $2, I was telling everybody to buy it. A lot of people purchased it up around $50 a share. Imagine you buy 10,000 shares at $2, what your account looks like, right? So I say all of that to say this. When Donald Trump, now I'm giving you guys a good tip here for those who are looking to invest, and I'm just telling you what to research. Pay close attention to what I'm saying. I'm pretty good at this, right? I deal with big numbers. When Donald Trump became president, right, he came out with his own coin, and then his wife came out with one, and then their consecutive family members, right? So you see where Donald Trump is now into the coin market. Now they're coming out on February the 1st with this coin that connects to the oil in Venezuela. And the guy from BlackRock is heading this up. It comes out February the 1st. So I would say do your research, because there's a reason why. You might look at it from a governmental standpoint, but on the back end, it boils down to money, and it boils down to coins or cryptocurrency as well, that's attached to a lot of these upcoming wars or events such as Venezuela, Greenland. All of this is getting attached to money. So what I do is I research this. Right now, you can easily afford the amounts of these coins and so forth. I mean, it requires a lot of research, but I'm saying open your mind and watch what Elon Musk is doing, what Donald Trump is doing, and you'll start to see great plays when it comes to the stock market and investing.
Every aspect of this green energy revolution. And so, since imperial power, global hegemony, is synonymous with energy innovation, China's dominance in this sector is going to be a key factor in its rising global hegemony, displacing the United States as the world's preeminent power. China already dominates the production of solar panels and solar panel components, and they're now turning that into...
Did you guys hear over the last week, Donald Trump keeps saying he hates solar panels. They're just like ancient, and you see what they look like out in California and other places, right? But now we're also hearing what China is doing in regards to solar panels.
This very important consumer durable, automobiles, and China's production of automobiles is extraordinary. They can produce a quick charging, long range electrical vehicle and sell it for $9,000. You can't get a secondhand Honda for $9,000 in the United States anymore. That's an extraordinary price. And they have a fleet of ships that are custom built, and their factories are robotic factories, all robotic factories, barely touched by a human hand, are cranking out cars literally by the millions. They are heading for the ports where specifically constructed ships are crossing to world markets. So
China has these auto industry on autopilot. They don't even need human hands for the most part. Can you imagine? How do you compete with that, right? You look at Ford, you see all these individuals. In fact, the person that heckled Donald Trump and he gave the middle finger to, right? You don't see that at these vast factories in China.
We're building robotic plants around the world. China is capturing the global auto market, and this is the cutting edge of Chinese global power and energy innovation.
Go check out the stock BYD. You'll see what I'm talking about.
So the United States is, in fact, retreating from the world economy and the world in two realms. One, a misuse of our military power, and a gross...
I mean, even look at Tesla, right? At $90 you get in, right? They're doing great, but wait till they actually get a handle on the robots, and they also get the auto driving down to a science. The stock is going to go through the roof, right?
Miscalculation in terms of energy policy. And the two together, I believe, will serve as kind of accelerants for a U.S. decline in the global arena.
I mean, it's very interesting. A federal court in the United States has just ruled that President Trump cannot single-handedly stop offshore wind farms off the coast of the United States as he tries to completely move away from renewables and back to oil, which brings us to Venezuela, where after...
Guys, I just want to say again, Deborah and her husband, Williams, just celebrated 42 years of marriage. That's like unheard of in this day and time, right? So definitely give Deborah and her husband a big shout out for that huge accomplishment.
He had the Venezuelan president.
Many more years and peace to you.
President and his wife abducted. In the news conference, he repeated dozens of times in his reasoning, he talked about oil. Now, I wanted to go to Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum on Monday, speaking with.
Now, keep in mind, I want you guys to understand that China, they're selling this car that I'm mentioning for $9,000 it goes for. You can't even buy a used Honda Accord nowadays for $9,000. So it just gives you an idea of what China is doing.
President Trump, after he threatened U.S. military intervention, he said to combat drug cartels in Mexico.
President Donald Trump and I talked about the joint work done in security. There are important results from the joint collaboration. For example, the fentanyl crossings have reduced by 50% in Mexico and the U.S. How is that measured? By the fentanyl seizures they do on the other side of the border. So, CBP, which is a U.S. agency, makes public the amount of fentanyl seized on the other side of the border, and it has reduced by 50% in a year.
So if you could talk about back to...
So, guys, as far as SoFi goes, I just want to give you guys something to walk away with. So I got in at $4. I won't say the amount of shares I purchased, right? Astronomical. But today is at $26.90. Do the math on from $4 one share, and then the share increases to $26.91. Anthony Noto, who basically built Twitter back in the day, they brought him over to SoFi to build a company. He gets his money, right? He gets the core of his money when SoFi hits $45 a share. We're already at $26.90, okay? So there's a lot of room there. So it requires you trying to bet that he's going to get the company to $45 a share so he can get his money. So if you're at a purchase at $4, actually, I'll show you guys. I posted it on Facebook probably about a year and a half ago, and already we're at $26 a share.
Latin America, when it comes to Mexico, when it comes to Cuba, clearly setting his sights on Cuba. Some say carrying out Marco Rubio, the Cuban-American Secretary of State's wishes, that Venezuela is even a route to take down the Cuban government, now forbidding Venezuela.
Okay, guys, so when Tesla fell, I got in on Tesla real early too, but when Tesla fell to $90, when everybody was in faint of fear, Donald Trump was new president for the second time around, and they were pushing this whole Doge thing. When everybody's in fear, that's when you buy into the stock market. So when it was going down to 90, I was putting on Facebook, this is when you need to buy Tesla. Do you know that Tesla is at $442 a share now, right? So if you purchased at 90, and now it's at 442, you have to do the math.
Venezuela from selling any oil to Cuba, which could very well further destabilize it. Talk about what's happening there.
Okay, if you look at last November, the Trump administration released what's called the...
Okay, guys, so at $2 a share, I was telling everybody, buy Rocket Lab, buy Rocket Lab. Folks, Rocket Lab is at $90 a share right now. And at $2, I was saying at least buy 1,000, or if you could buy 10,000 shares. Can you imagine what it looks like to go from $2 a share to now it's at $90 a share? Do the math, folks. This is what I'm talking about. You have to do you should be researching this every day.
National Security Strategy, the NSS document. And in this, Trump is very clear that the U.S. is going to reorient its military forces from a global position, essentially pull out of Europe, abandon the U.S. position on the vast Eurasian landmass, and relocate its forces into Latin America and achieve absolute dominance over Latin America. The U.S. still has formidable military power, tremendous economic resources, and when we concentrate that on the southern border, on our southern neighbors, we can be, as we have been since the 1890s, absolutely dominant in the Caribbean. Okay, from 1898 until the...
Deborah, you're getting a lot of love in the audience. Annette says, congratulations. Stanley says their marriage was made in heaven. All right. Brian says, God has blessed you, Deborah. Love you. What the connection's amazing. People connecting in the audience is so grand. Thank you for that.
Early 1933, the United States exercised gunboat diplomacy in the Caribbean. Theodore Roosevelt sent the Navy to block Colombian forces and force the secession of Panama and its creation as independent states so we could build the canal. The U.S. forces shuttled in and out of the Caribbean for the next 30 years. It wasn't until the Franklin Roosevelt administration announced a good neighbor policy that we stopped that. But that's the Trump policy. We're returning to this gunboat.
Savage is called Rocket Lab. Rocket Lab, LAB. I typically try to buy my stocks under $2 a share and watch them grow. If they fall off at $2, I don't really care as much. But it's a beautiful thing to see stocks go from $2 a share all the way up to $90. And especially if you buy 1,000 shares or 10,000 at a time and it goes from 2 to 90, you just have to do the math.
Diplomacy and this intervention. And frankly, we have sufficient power to do that. That will, of course, just as it did the last time, produce an enormous nationalist, anti-imperialist reaction in Latin America and undercut our serious long-term and diplomatic relationships with our Latin American neighbors. And China is already the dominant economic.
So the point of the matter that I'm making is that Donald Trump is doing the government affairs, right? His brother used to be my client, and I learned just the thinking pattern is very interesting, right? But from a long time ago. But what they're doing on the front end is conducting government business, but on the back end, they're making deals. And so for the individuals who are privy to these type of deals, who knows what's happening, the real reason for the oil. But if you look at the market, you'll see now for February the 1st, you have all of these oil companies, coins attached to BlackRock. And if you know what BlackRock is, if you own their stock, you understand what I mean. But at this point, they're at a level where the average Joe could choose, right? You could choose from buying a bottle of water or buying one stock, and that could turn your whole life around if you buy enough and you hold it for the right amount of time. Now, these things can go left. My advice is just to keep researching and asking questions.
A trade partner in much of Latin America. And I think over the long term, that will arouse hostility.
I mean, the fact of the matter that Donald Trump and his family has went up to $6 billion since he's been in office, their net worth has increased. It lets you know that these deals are happening, right? But you have to really get an idea when you see these, them going to Venezuela, Greenland, you start to see that there's a whole money play on the back end that has really nothing to do with oil, but they're using oil on these as the coin is very complex. But if you start to research, you'll see what I'm talking about.
Increase China's presence and increase diplomatic ties between China and Latin America. So it'll be short-term dominance and control for a long-term loss of influence and power.
We only have about 30 seconds, but the constant use of the United States, the war on drugs as a means to impose its will on Latin America?
Yeah, the war on drugs since President Nixon declared it back in 1972 has been a monumental failure.
All right, so that's it for that. I want to share this for those who are interested. The rest I'm going to do on a members only stream. I don't like to give advice. This is not for a charge. I'm not asking for anything. All I'm saying is you need to really do your research, because you could really go from having money issues to being in a millionaire type of situation. It's quite different, right? But I will say this, if you have a white sheet of paper, I'm going to lay it out for you to research, right? Because I know there's people in the audience that really want to know. And again, this is not to join anything. There's no paid, whatever, could care less. But research the S&P 500, research it. Look at the Vanguard, Fidelity, but look at it from every angle. Look at YouTube videos. You guys have access. Obviously, if you're watching this video, you can start to understand what it really means. Now, since Donald Trump has been in office, you could go back to the first day that he became president and look at how much the S&P 500 was worth on that day. And then I want you to look at what it's worth today and see what the difference is. It's going to be quite interesting. The S&P 500, basically, let's say, for instance, if I'm buying one Tesla stock, right? Here we go. I'm using my phone. That's one Tesla stock. If Tesla goes belly up, then I lose my money. With the S&P 500, you're buying all these different companies, sometimes up to 2,000 companies at once. So if Tesla goes belly up, you don't take that severe hit. So these are the type of things I would like to encourage you to keep researching, because right now it's probably a once in a lifetime type of deal. I have not seen any companies increase, and there's a lot of guys in the audience that could second what I'm saying, but you really want to do your homework and try to understand these concepts, especially if you can't sleep at night. You could just go online and start educating yourself. And you'd be surprised how just educating and having critical thinking can really help you tremendously. And I would implore everyone to look at everything 2 or 3 times, because a lot of things are very deceptive and a lot of people fall for schemes and scams. But if you do your homework, you will come out much better. We've had a lot of people here today. I hope you guys were able to benefit from some of the things seen and heard, especially with the various subject matters that we've covered. All right, One Love says 10% a year on average. Yes, that's it. S&P 500. And the gains are incredible. Now, yeah, VOO, that's a really good one. So go to Yahoo Finance, pull it up on your phone. You can go to Yahoo and then put in finance, right? Yahoo Finance, and look at VOO. That's another one. I'm not giving you financial advice. I'm just telling you what to research, and you'll be shocked at the amazing things you can learn just by spending time researching, reading, going to the bookstore. A lot of the greatest things ever are found in books, and they're teaching us to keep swiping so much. We just want to swipe that if anything is over 3 minutes, we don't even want to watch it anymore. And this is a serious situation when life has come to this measure. Thank you guys for tuning in today. I will be doing a more comprehensive breakdown about stocks on the member live, because I've been promising that to you guys, but I've been in court so much covering these cases. But I think you do well to start learning these concepts. Could definitely change your life. Imagine the people that purchased maybe Rocket Lab at $1 or 50 cents, and now it's at $90 a share. You don't even want to know what that looks like. It's like the people that purchased Bitcoin that knew about it. They were privy to it a long time ago. They got in for a quarter, 75 cents, $1. Most of the time, we're looking back saying, oh, I wish I'd have got in. I wish I had have did this. I wish I'd have did that. Well, it's never too late, but the key ingredient is to have our things together so that when the next opportunity comes, we're at least ready. When the ship docks, will you be ready to unload? A lot of us, we just don't get to that position because we're always procrastinating when it comes to educating ourselves, when it comes to stock market. A lot of people are so negative. They say, oh my goodness, but here's the thing, you can't really win. It's kind of like the lottery. You can't win if you don't play. Now, I'm not encouraging you to go play the lottery, but it's the concept of the matter. And sometimes you don't have to. A lot of people think they need $1 million, 100,000, 1,000. It's just slow and steady wins the race. So you just buy a little S&P 500 here. You could buy a little gold there. And over time, Father Time catches up with all of us. And we also, as we start to get older, we start thinking about the next generation, our children that we leave behind. Do we leave them with a head start, or do we leave them with a headache like the good old song, Papa Was a Rolling Stone? right? Wherever he laid his head was his home. But when he died, all he left was alone. That's the common story that we see happening. Nowadays, GoFundMe has become the life insurance policy. Why is that the case? Recently, I saw a person that was a celebrity, and I thought he had the persona like he had money, but he did not have any money to pay for his funeral. So people had to scramble and scraping and scrambling just to get the money together. Like, what's going on, folks, right? And everybody's going on social media painting a picture. And sometimes these pictures that are being painted are not true at all. Like, what's really happening? Then, on top of that, we hear of wars and reports of wars. And if that's not enough for you, then you have in our country people fighting against the government, getting their shovel and getting shot. Like, what are you smoking? If you think you can take on the officers and hit them with a shovel and they're not going to come back for your head, you may not be here tomorrow if this is how you want to take on your risk factors, right? Thank you. I didn't intend to go there on this live, but hey, it was good information. So do your research. I'm always available if you want to email me. And again, I don't charge. I don't ask for money. All I ask for is that for those who like the video, could you just like the video? That's all. Help push the channel. We're building something here great. We have great people in the audience who we all started off as strangers, but now we're getting to know each other quite well. Thank you. You're far too kind. We'll be back on. Let's see. Do we have a show tonight? Oh, my goodness. We have Mama Flips tonight. Oh, my. It's going to be the night. It's one of my favorite nights of the week. I love it when Mama Flips just get wound up and just go at it. A lot of people may not like it. May not be for everybody, but I definitely enjoy hearing her just do her thing. Tonight will be that night. So we're going to be talking about the whole Minnesota deal. Now, I want to tell you guys, I don't want to go on another tangent, but I will say this. I know I said I was going to end the show. I want to say this. Yesterday, I did a breakdown for Nick Shirley. Nick Shirley, I was here in New York when he was punched in the head, right? In New York, the African guys shook him up because he was out doing the same thing that he was doing in Minnesota. And some of the pushback that I was given last night is that you have to implore critical thinking when people make statements and they're saying, like, for instance, you walk up and a person might be sitting on a bench, right? You don't know how long they've been sitting there. You don't know if that's where they sleep at night. You don't know where they're going. But I could walk up to that bench and say, oh, this is Charlie. And I have my camera. Oh, yeah, this is Charlie. This is the guy that just stole my hat, right? The people looking, you guys are looking through the phone. You're like, oh, man, this guy's a thief. He's out here taking people's hats, right? You see how this could work? So you just because people say stuff online and they say, like, for instance, in the first video, and I'm not knocking Nick Shirley, he's doing a great work. There is fraud. I've showed it on this channel too, right? From the media. But one thing for sure, when they did the first video and they went to the daycare, they went to the back door, number one. And then afterward, the media came forward. I think even Fox, I believe, came forward and showed when they were saying there were no kids here, they showed you through the camera that 10 minutes before these guys arrived saying that this wasn't a real daycare, they show you kids walking into the daycare. They also show you kids leaving right after Nick Shirley gave his, review saying that there's no one there. So you see how that works? Everybody's using it. Oh, these people are terrible. But it's not based on facts, right? So that's all I'm saying is try to implore some critical thinking because it's so dangerous. People can totally destroy your life on a few words. And if they have a camera and a phone and they have a good mouth to just say whatever they want to say, they can ruin your whole career, if not some of it. So at any rate, we're going to get to that tonight, but Mama Flips is going to have a lot to say about it. I look forward. I anticipate her, doing her typical breakdown after I ask those interesting questions, I must say. Thank you. Thank you. You're far too kind, folks. Let's keep finding the truth. and let's do so in a dignified manner with unity and respect everybody's religion, respect everybody's life, right? The same way you would want to be treated. Thank you. We'll see you tonight at 8 p.m. with, it might be at 9. I think Mama Flip says she won't be able to come on until 9. So we'll see you at 9 o'clock tonight, Eastern Standard Time. If I don't say that, Stella is going to find me $100. So, all right. Thank you. We'll see you tonight. You're far too kind.
Different voices, but the same song. Living a world where we all belong. Kindness leading the way, breaking the chains. In the symphony of love, the flame remains. Embracing diversity, brighter days in sight. Watching the world sharing love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. Colors of harmony, painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might. Watching the world sharing love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. The colors of harmony, painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might.